And then if you want to stop your camera and mute yourself until the item, that would be great.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
And where is that?
I'll help you.
Oh, there it is.
All right.
I got Harold.
All right, I will rename. All right.
And we've got Harrison, Lisa Knobloch, and Francie all ready to go.
Yep, I'm working on Sandy.
Okay. I got Dan Wolford.
Sandy should be good. And Harold, you're next. You should be good to check your mic.
Test.
Yay.
All right, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. May 11th, 2021. This is a regular session meeting. Could we please start with, actually, we'll just recognize that everyone is here. I'm going to ask, however, that Councilmember Christensen audibly, are you still here, Polly?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I have no video on this either.
Right. So just Chair take note that we're seeing that all council members are present and hearing a roll call recognition from Councilmember Christensen. So we'll go ahead and start with now with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll lead it. Councilmember Hidalgo Faring, you look perplexed. Are you hearing us okay?
Yes, I'm fine. It's been a
All right,
long day.
just checking. All right. Oh, Polly, we see you. All right, so we see you on both. We see you and we hear you. So that's good. All right, so let's go ahead and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I thank Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez for his participation in the pledge. And those of you who lip sync, well, next week you're going to lead it. That was a joke, Marcia. You can smile. All right. So let's go ahead and remind the public that you should be watching the live stream. And when it comes time, we're going to flash up a meeting ID like the following slide. Call in, wait, and then we'll call you by your last 3 or 4 numbers of your phone number. You'll be given 3 minutes. So that's the slide you'll see. We'll leave it up for maybe 10 to 15 seconds right now. So you can jot it down now if you'd like. But in the meantime, while we keep that up, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of April 27th, 2021, which was a regular session?
So moved.
I'll second it. Dr. Waters moved. I seconded. The motion is to approve the April 27th minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, the motion carries unanimously. Do we have any agenda revisions or submission of documents? Motions to direct the city manager. Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I have 2. The first one is I move to direct staff to add an agenda item either in late June or early July for council to address and revise the council's rules of procedure.
Is there a specific issue that you'd like to address?
Yes, the rules of procedure. I would like council to look at it, address it, and revise if possible, or if warranted.
And I guess I'm just asking. Okay, is there a second? Councilmember Christensen? Paul, unmute yourself on the other computer.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, I would second that. And I also have something I want to bring up.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to bring forward in late June or July, a motion to revise council rules of procedure. Do we have any debate on this? Councilmember Martin?
And given how crowded our agendas are becoming, I would like to understand what the issue is with our existing ones before I vote for it.
Councilmember Peck.
We have discussed this, Mayor Bagley and Councilwoman Martin, about 1.5 years ago now. It's been discussed several times because they're 20 years old, and we just bring them up to date. And if this council has anything they want to add or revise, I think it's time to do that.
All right, Councilmember Christensen.
You're seeing me wave. Yeah, we really need to upgrade these before the next election. And so this is a timely thing to be discussing.
Councilmember Waters.
Yeah, I don't know that I was inclined to vote for this motion. I mean, without having any idea what problem was, but now to put that in relationship to an election, I want to say I would need way more information before I would support a motion to chase a problem. I have no idea what it is, and it's somehow related to an election. So I'm going to vote no without more information.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I don't think I'd be inclined to put this on a normal agenda for the city council, rather as more of something of a pre-session where we can, get together and review and discuss the council procedure, but not for a normal agenda as far as city council is concerned. And so that's kind of where I stand on that.
Councilmember Peck?
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to amend this motion? Because I think that's a good idea, actually.
Sure. I propose a friendly amendment that a meeting be scheduled prior to city council, such as a special session to review the council procedures.
And may I say one more thing, Mayor?
Well, I mean, he's proposed it, sure, but he's proposed an amendment. Do you want to respond?
No, I accept that.
All right.
I accept that amendment.
I'm going to vote against it only because I don't like having meetings for meetings' sake. And I've not heard anything about our rules of procedure that need addressing. So I don't want to, everybody here is free to read it. I mean, if you want to review it, go read it. And then if there's an issue, let's bring it up. But sitting there and having staff give a presentation on what they are, I can read. I don't need a pre-session with everybody here to address this. So if we have a concern, tell us. If not, let's don't meet, please. Councilmember Christensen?
We have been trying to have this discussion for well over a year. It has to do with clarifying what form of government we have, which is a council and city manager system. And it also has to do with clarifying what members of city council do and do not do.
So what is the issue?
I think we need to have some agreement on this, and we need to discuss this before we have another whole bunch of city council members coming in.
And I guess what I'm just asking straight up, what is the concern? What is city council or me or what are we doing to upset someone? Councilmember Peck.
So I just think it would be a really good idea to review them. I'm sure we've all read the rules of procedure, make sure they're in line with Robert's Rules of Order, and see what is working and what isn't working. We did discuss this about a year and a half ago, and I would have brought it up a lot sooner, but because of the pandemic, we've been, as everyone knows, that's been our focus.
The good news is we don't have to go to all the meetings we don't want to. So unless I hear the reason why, I won't be there. But the good news is Mayor Pro Tem will be. Dr. Waters.
Yeah, the only conversation I recall that had to do with rules and procedures takes us back to the events that unfolded in October, November of 2019. Is that the context for this? I mean, I'm down with that conversation if we want to do it. But it would be helpful to know, I do not recall in the last year and a half any agreement that we need to go back and change rules and procedures, unless we're talking about how we hold one another accountable for ethical behavior. If that's it, let's do it. But let's do it when we're all, in public space and we can invite the public in.
I call the question.
Motion fails for lack of second. All right,
Oh,
Councilmember Hidalgo Ferring?
I didn't realize you had to second it.
Well, we should act quicker. All right, Councilmember Hidalgo Ferring?
I don't have a comment. I was going to second it, but I didn't make my finger.
Okay, and it's been seconded. All right, great. All right, so let's go ahead and vote. I will not be there if it passes. All right.
That's fine.
That's fine. Go ahead. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay.
Clarification.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
This is the vote on the call to question first.
Oh, yeah, sure. We'll call the question. Sure, call the question. This is gonna be a fun night. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay.
Hey,
Nay.
All right. Was that a nay from you, Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
All right, so motion carries 5-2 with Councilmember Waters and Councilmember Martin opposed. So there's a motion on the table, and that table is we should have, and it was amended to, should we have a pre-session to review the council rules of procedure. So all in favor, say aye.
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 I,
Nay. Opposed, say nay. Nay.
Nay.
All right. So raise your hand if you're aye. All right. The motion fails with Councilmember Waters, Martin, Rodriguez, and myself opposed. All right. Councilmember Christensen, actually, Councilmember Peck, did you have something you wanted to address?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Christensen. Councilmember Christensen, did you have something you wanted to bring up?
Yes, I do. We have I want to just amend something that is in our inclusionary housing, to amend the phrase that occasionally appears, although I cannot find it in the actual ordinance. The phrase is land donation, donate land to, and this refers to the city developers under land donations, donate land to the city or a nonprofit housing developer. I would like to just strike that wherever it appears, strike out or a nonprofit housing developer. And here's why. Private deals of which no member of the public or the entire body of city council is not present lead to lack of transparency and accountability, and they leave the situation ripe for the moral hazard of corruption. They don't allow the city to determine what the city needs. The city does a needs assessment every 5 years. Before and after that, we were told that the greatest need is for 40% AMI and below. But the greatest building, according to Kathy Fedler in our presentation of several weeks ago, is at the mid-tier for sale 120% and above, and at rental at about 60%. So this is not meeting our needs. And it is true we've only had this sort of deal go through twice so far, but I don't want it to continue. It's our city. We need to have the land donated directly to the city. The developer doesn't get to decide who builds, how, and when, and where. So I would direct staff to amend our inclusionary housing, to amend the phrase land donation, donate land to the city or a nonprofit housing developer, to land donation, donate land to the city, period, wherever that appears. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, I'm just a little confused. And so this is the only thing that we do at this time is to direct staff to put it on a future agenda.
Yes.
So you're saying that you want to put on a future agenda.
Yes, an amendment.
An amendment to current Longmont, the current affordable housing ordinance.
Yes.
That would strike specific language, which I don't understand or recall. I don't have the bill in front of me. But you want to put that on a future agenda, correct?
Yes.
All right. Does everybody understand the motion? Go ahead. Councilmember Christensen, you were saying?
Oh, this was put in because it was put in to please one particular developer, and it was put in because it was said that it was convenient. And I have no doubt that it is more convenient for the developer to talk directly to the builder. However, the whole purpose of the inclusionary housing is to give us land or fees in lieu or built housing. This undermines the entire ordinance, and that's why it has to be eliminated, so it doesn't happen again.
Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I agree with this because now that we are the LHA board, if developers or landowners want to grant land in lieu and it is granted to the city, directly to the city, then the city can develop it in the way that we know we need housing. And it won't have to be, it'll be a cleaner deal, to be quite honest.
Yes.
And then if the city would like to have Habitat for Habitat develop it or any other organization, then our planning and zoning department and that developer has a better control over it. If it's under LHA, then we also might be able to get certain grants for it through CHAFA, through HUD, I just think it would be a cleaner development. It could be in any tier, whatever the city needed, but I just see it, since we are the board of the LHA, that would be a good way for us to get land to develop it the way we need, et cetera, and get the landowner or the developer out of that project.
But before I call on Councilmember Martin, you can put your count down, Councilmember Martin, you're next, and then Councilmember Waters, you're next. I believe that yellow hand is to raise your hand. Oh, okay.
And he was first.
I know, but I didn't see it. So, but we'll go Dr. Waters, then we'll go Councilmember Martin. But could you please read, Councilmember Christensen, I want to give you a fair shake. Could you please read how it currently reads, and then read the language you want to strike?
Sure, I just did that, but I know.
I know you did. I'm stupid. I'm hard of hearing.
No,
I admit it.
stupid.
If you could just read it, that'd be great.
You're anything but stupid. The phrase that appears on information on the city's website and also on Kathy Fedler's slides say that land donation : donate land to the city or a nonprofit housing developer.
And you want to strike?
To strike or a nonprofit housing developer. Yes, I just want to donate it to the city, period.
Okay.
Is deleting 5 words wherever they occur. But I have looked through the inclusionary housing ordinance and I did not find this anywhere. But we have already done this several times. I don't want us to do it anymore. I want us to be the decider. And as Councilwoman Peck said, the reason for this is partly that if it goes to the city, we can land bank it as we have on North Hover Street, so that we can wait until we have the appropriate financial stack to develop it the way we want to. Or as Councilwoman Peck said, we can get a lot of, we can leverage this to get grants from the federal government, the state government, the county government. We can get much more out of this if we are in control of it. And that is the whole point of this.
So quick question, and that is, Harold, I don't know who on staff would know the answer to this, but if they donate land to the city or nonprofit currently, does that not have to come to council for review and approval?
That's what I'm trying to look at right now in terms of that process.
But
the answer to that question will decide whether or not I vote yes or no to put this on an agenda. So I'd like to know.
But let me point out that before we let them go through with this, because they had already made the deal, and we're not going to back off and say, oh no, okay, we're not going to fund Habitat for Humanity. But we want to.
Can I raise a point of order, Mayor Bagley?
So, yes,
yes. Point of orders are always take precedent.
Are we debating this tonight, or are we going to just vote whether or not?
This is just to determine whether or not we're putting it on the future agenda.
Right.
Well, it sounds to me like we're making the case tonight for a change in an ordinance, as opposed to putting an ordinance on an agenda.
And that is true. And I will limit discussion, but you are up. So Dr. Waters, is that what you wanted to say, or do you want to?
No, I would like to say something in addition to that. I understand the motion. I didn't know that we were arguing the case tonight, and that sounded to me like what was happening. We just went through an approval of, as I recall, 9 amendments to our inclusionary housing ordinance 2 meetings ago. We were told by the staff and in those materials that in June or July, we would return to the next 2 of the issues, big ones. In the context of that conversation, Councilmember Christensen expressed a concern about the donation of land. I have no doubt that would be an appropriate time for that conversation to occur. I'm just wondering why, given what we did, given what we heard from the staff, given what we know they're bringing, why we're going to create another agenda item since it's already scheduled in either June or July to go deeply into the bigger issues. This is one of them when it comes to that, to the issue of donations. And when we do, I as sure as heck want to hear from the United Church of Christ. I want to hear from Habitat for Humanity, those nonprofits who have been the beneficiaries. And I want to hear from them what's more or less complicated and what is in the interest of what they do, since they are the ones who understand the building of affordable housing, not us. They do. And I'd like to hear from them when the time comes.
Councilman Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I'd also like to point out that in untangling several permitting applications that have come before, come into the city recently and have not come before council, that some additional anomalies in the IZO have been uncovered that I hope the staff will bring forward in the next tranche. And so I think that this specific point is too small, and it would not be effective. We should at least do number 10 and 11, this, and the discussion of why there is no why the law is so ambiguous on what happens when someone exceeds the required number of percentage of affordable units. And I think there are a whole lot more. I don't think the first tranche really covered it. So let's do a big one. I don't have any problem with reconsidering the ordinance because it's new, it's complicated, and it needs work, but not something so small.
Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. Councilwoman Christensen, would you consider a little amendment to your motion to say that we direct staff to add this? I'm not sure that this specific issue was going to be on the amendments that they were going to bring back. Just to include this issue in the amendments that they're going to bring back at the next, I forgot when Councilman Waters said that they were going to bring back in June or July, the other amendments. Can we just ask them to make sure they bring this amendment back with the other ones? To change it at that time.
Keeping in mind that if it just jump in by, if it fails, it's over, it's dead. I would be more than willing to discuss this when it comes up on the agenda in the regular course of business. So Councilmember Peck is saying this might pass in a couple months, but it might die tonight.
I just would like it to come back. Instead of making a specific agenda item out of it, bring this issue of land donation in lieu with the other amendments that you have scheduled. Make sure that that is added on to those.
All right, I will amend it to do that. But meanwhile, we have 4 months that we will be losing land.
Right, there's a motion to, the amended motion is to instruct staff to make sure that this particular issue, making it so that you have to give land donated to the city rather than the city or a nonprofit, that this issue is put on the agenda when it comes back in June or July this summer, whenever that may be. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. All right, the motion carries 6-1 with Councilmember Martin opposed. All right, was there anybody else that wanted to do anything? Okay, that said, let's move on then to city manager report, update on COVID. Would it be possible, Harold, can we go ahead and ask the public to call in for the public invited to be heard now while Harold gives his presentation on COVID? Is that possible?
You can. I'm going to show a slide. And so.
Okay, never mind then. We'll go
I'm
ahead.
going to show one slide and then Liz is going to join on with me to then talk, just give you an overview on masking.
That's fine.
You can probably do it then.
Well, no, we'll just do it when we read the consent agenda like last time. That's fine. Right. Go ahead, Harold.
Because my slides are going to be quick and
I'm squeezing in dinner because I didn't have time. So if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm eating while I direct this meeting. So
basically, just wanted you all to see the this is the 14-day moving average hospital admission rates by county. I'm not going to show you all the counties again, but if you look at the metro area, you can see where that was. We were talking about how everyone was kind of concerned about this. You can see it dipping, but the good news is when you look in Boulder County, you can definitely see that the hospital admissions are decreasing in Boulder County. So that is a good step and information that we would like to see. Just wanted to say they're continuing to make a lot of progress in terms of the vaccination piece. To give you a sense, they're starting to correlate case rates to those that are vaccinated. So I know that question came before. Occasionally they do see what they call breakthrough cases. Breakthrough cases are those for somebody who's already been sick or vaccinated that do get the disease. It's a rare occurrence in terms of the information we're getting. I know that question was asked, are they tracking it? Yes, they're tracking. It's rare. But to give you a sense of where we are and just generally with vaccination rates, at the 75 plus category, with at least a partial course of vaccination, it's 91.7%, 65 to 74, 91%, 55 to 64, 72.5, 45 to 54, 72.4, 35 to 44, 77, 23 to 34, 62.7, 18 to 22, 37.7, and 10 to 17, 12.8. So definitely those numbers are continuing to come to move up. We're also seeing that we're making progress in our underserved communities. We know we still have a lot of work to do, but those numbers are going up as well. I was looking for that percentage. So basically right now, the numbers are clearly showing cases that have higher vaccine rates are starting to show lower case rates. And that correlation on the data is coming together as they continue to evaluate it. So we're continuing to make progress, still really focusing on ensuring that we can get everyone that we possibly can vaccinated. And Carmen is really doing a phenomenal job, really working with the county and leading that effort to increase vaccines for our underserved populations. What I also wanted to have Liz do is to give you a quick update in terms of the masking order. Staff is preparing to bring you all back together in June in terms of in-person meetings. And these masking orders have changed and are allowing us to do it. Depending on how it continues to move, we may still need some form of a hybrid option for the meetings. But we also wanted to get your feedback on this. So Liz, will you go over the masking order quickly?
Sure. Thank you, Harold. Good evening, Council. So Boulder County has a new masking order that went into effect for 30 days from May 5th. It's actually very similar to the state's order that went into effect on May 2nd. And so for the purposes of what we're talking about, masking order, when I say vaccinated, I mean fully vaccinated, which is 2 weeks after your last shot, whether it's 2 from Moderna or Pfizer or 1 for Johnson & Johnson. And when I say public indoor spaces, that is defined as all enclosed areas except for a person's residence, which does include cars if that is your residence. For the city, for our general purposes, the biggest change in the masking order is that there is now a distinction between public indoor spaces in government buildings where the public is allowed and spaces where the public is not generally allowed. So in any area accessible to the public, masks must be worn by everyone, regardless of the group size, regardless of the vaccination status. The exceptions that have always applied are still there. If you are 10 and younger, if you have a medical exception, those still exist. Now for areas, the private spaces in our government buildings, masks are not required when the group in the room, 4 walls and a door, is 9 or fewer, regardless of vaccination status. Groups 10 to 49, at least 80% must be vaccinated in order for masks to be taken off. If the group is 50 and up, it's still the 80% threshold, but at that point, so 50 or more people in a room, they have to have proven vaccination status. And by proven, that means either showing your vaccine card or a medical record showing that you are fully vaccinated. For transportation, the CDC guidelines still control, and they are incorporated in Boulder County's order. So for mass transit, ride sharing, et cetera, masks must be worn for everyone, regardless of size or vaccination status. And the CDC's requirement that those 2 and over wear a mask also applies. So in general, Boulder County, Colorado, it's 10 and under are exempt. But if it's mass transit, we're talking about 2 and under 2 are the only ones exempt by age. For government facilities that are government owned, but not traditional government, the exceptions can apply. So if we're having an event that we rent out to the Callahan House, they may be unvaccinated if 80%, they may be unmasked if 80% are vaccinated. And then there are other places throughout Boulder County that a mask must be worn, again, regardless of their vaccination status or regardless of the numbers. Retail, personal services, congregate care facilities, jails, those all require masks to be worn. And Boulder County Public Health still recommends that all individuals aged 2 years and older who have not been vaccinated, they should still practice physical distancing of 6 feet, hand washing, and wearing face coverings whenever they're with members of other households. That is the quick version of the orders. Thank you.
So Mayor, Council, you obviously have seen the different tiers and how we have to approach it and what we need to go through. And you all said once this was available, you were interested in coming back to in-person meetings in this arena. And so the question that I have for you is based on what you've heard, you know, if we're under 49 in the room, we can still go at this unmasked and we know what the requirements are. If we're over 50, then we have to have proof of vaccination, correct, Liz?
If the public is allowed, it will have to be masked for everyone.
Oh, okay.
That does not change regardless of vaccination status. So this may change in early June. We'll be in clear by then. We just don't know yet.
So if the public's not allowed, but you all want to meet in person and it's staff, we can do the hybrid format that we're doing with Zoom now. So you all can be in the room, but we would still need the hybrid into Zoom for the public to come in, for public invited to be heard, comment on ordinances. That's assuming it doesn't change. If it changed, there may be a derivative in this where we could come in-person meetings in June. So I just wanted to get council's thoughts on this in terms of how we bring you all back together. Really looking mid-June so we can get all the technology situated if we have to do a hybrid version. And we probably will still always have to do some form of hybrid until it clears up.
Councilmember Christensen?
Can you hear me? I don't know what I'm doing on that. Okay. It's the public that I think we all want to see. We don't need to see each other. We can see each other right now, but I think it's being able to interact with the public and have them come up and speak, being able to give petitions, being able to interact like human beings, like we're used to. I think the value, we're supposed to be representing the public, and if they can't speak, then it makes it very difficult for us. I think we all feel that way.
Anyone else? Councilmember Peck?
Thank you. Harold, is there any way, for example, if we meet in person, to have maybe 10 people at a time for public invited to be heard to come in? Someone would have to monitor that. Because I do think that it would be beneficial for the people speaking to see us, to interact, but there would be really no reason to pack the chamber with people who just want to listen to the meeting. If we could figure out a way to do that, I think that would be helpful.
I think that's what we're trying to figure out, because part of it is we know that on a hybrid format, there may be some technology issues. So I probably should have been more clear in my questions. One question is, if they completely change the rules where it's more open for people to come in, do you all want to come back in June? That's one question. If they don't change the rules where we still have to have some hybrid, do you all want us to figure out different options for people to participate so you can come back in session, or do you want to stay in the virtual format?
Councilmember Waters.
Thanks, Mayor Bagley. Harold, for me, as soon as we could get back to meeting in person, I'd like to do it. I share the concern that for us to meet without the public kind of misses the point.
Right.
If June 4th is the date, I mean, we are a few meetings away from June 4th. If after June 4th, we can meet in chambers with the public without masks up to whatever that number is, assuming people have to give us some indication whether or not I don't know how we would monitor that or manage that. But my preference is to get back into chambers, meet in person, but to do that with the public.
Is that where all the council is? Get back in chambers, meet in person with the public?
Yes, that's mine.
Councilmember Hidalgo Ferring.
I have some concerns, and I think a lot of it has to do with, my line of work, where I'm at. Currently, I have all my kids in quarantine, with the exception of one. Over the year, I've had students who've been hospitalized, one in ICU. I'm really concerned. I mean, we've had now our fourth grade is wiped out, my class is wiped out, first grade is wiped out. And we had, up until the last month, had been doing fairly well. And what's changed is people are getting more laxed. People are getting, our kids are still not vaccinated. So the ones that are going to be, for me, I'm vaccinated. So I'm still in my building, but I'm just teaching them online from school. The ones that are going to be hurting if we are not careful are our little ones. And so I am wanting to approach that with a great deal of caution. I do want to have meetings in person, and with the public, but if it's not safe to do so, I would just consider staying online. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
So was the consensus I heard was, not consensus, I heard 6, and I also heard Councilmember Hidalgo Ferring. I heard 5, then I also heard Councilmember Hidalgo Ferring, but for the 5 of you saying you prefer to meet in chambers, no masks, with staff, keep the public below 49, and rotate out the public invited to be heard, and in addition have a Zoom meeting that people can watch and attend? Is that what everyone's saying? Or am I misunderstanding? Councilmember Waters?
Yeah, that's not exactly what I was saying. I wasn't, if we have to rotate people in and out, I don't know that that's a good plan. But my assumption is that we would have clearer guidance after June 4th. If we're in the clear status, the prospect that we could have members of the public with us, I don't know what that limit would be, but the idea of rotating people in and out, kind of a cattle call, doesn't appeal to me. That's not what I had in mind.
So what I heard, Mayor, if I may jump in, what I thought everyone said was, if we can come in and if we can bring people in where you're interacting with the public, you're interested in doing that. You're not as interested as if there's this hybrid format and people are coming in and out, but really having the public there with you all. That's what you want to see done. That's how I understood it in the direction. And then obviously the safety issue on anything we do, we're going to be talking to public health to bring that to you on, let you know what the numbers are looking like.
I personally want to go back and the public can be there, not limited.
Okay.
And in the meantime, we can do Zoom.
Okay.
Is that what we're saying?
That's what I thought I heard everyone say.
Okay. All right.
And then
sorry, hold on one second, Harold. Councilmember Christensen, did you have something to say on that topic?
Yeah, how are they doing this? I haven't been to the movies yet, but I hope to go soon. Are they just sitting 6 feet apart, leaving 2 seats between them? We could do that. That would at least give us quite a few people.
I'm not sure how they're doing it. We can definitely look and see what they're doing there. I don't know. I'll work with
at my
Liz.
sister's church, that's what they do. They just try to sit 6 feet apart.
But even if we did that, based on what I heard from the governor's order, we still couldn't do it if we had.
Yeah, because you have to wear a mask right now.
Oh,
And that's and that's what we're waiting to see what happens in May 16th on the level clear and the masking ordinances, because I also want to be clear, level clear and where we can go is disconnected, and Liz, correct me if I'm wrong on this, is disconnected from the masking orders. So we could theoretically move to level clear, but they're still imposing some type of masking order on us. And so we have two different things that we're watching in this process. It ends on June 4th, and we may have more clarity there, but if it tends to work like it's been working, we won't know until June 4th.
Mayor Pro Tem? That wasn't you? I thought Councilmember Martin.
This is, we don't know whether this will ever be a scheme that's allowed or not, but I think it would be fine to have the people on the dais and speakers be unmasked and the audience be unmasked, except when they're called up to speak, which would certainly be safer. It's similar to what the governor does when he has his events. So if that turns out to be possible, then I think that would be a good trigger for returning to the public.
In the meantime, let's keep doing Zoom. Councilmember Lago-Ferring?
I have a question. So what would happen in the event that we have a big hot topic item where a lot of public want to be there? How would we be able to mitigate? And I mean, are we allowed then to say, hey, we can't have any more people and send people away? The other problem the other thing that comes to mind would be, how would we manage people who are hanging out in overflow?
So I think that's the challenge in understanding what the masking. So today, if we wanted to do it, we all would have to wear a mask in there because that's the rule in public areas. We're not sure what it's going to look like on June 4th, and that's what we have to wait and see. Because I think that's part of the challenge with this is you'll see all of these formulas and you really go, how in the world can you operationalize these formulas? And I think that's what people are struggling with. I think the direction you all gave us, though, would satisfy that, because what you want to have is people, and I want to make sure I understand it again, essentially an open forum where people, you all can be there, the community can be there, people can be unmasked, they can have the conversation. And if we're not able to do that, then we're going to stay in the Zoom format. So I think to your question is the orders will be pretty open. And if we have those big issues, we would probably still be in a Zoom format based on the direction I heard from council, because that masking order is going to dictate how and when. Am I misunderstanding council direction on this?
You got it, Harold. All right. So what else do you have for the COVID update, Harold?
That is it.
All right,
that is
perfect.
it. Until June 4th.
All right. So let's go ahead and open it up for first call, public invited to be heard. And let's go ahead in the meantime. Valentin Tom is not here, but Michelle, are you going to be reading?
Mayor, I think Sandy's going to step in.
All right, Sandy, let's go ahead and read the consent agenda, please.
You got it, Mayor. Item 9A, ordinance 2129, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to lease the real property known as the Vance Bryan Municipal Airport Hangar Parcel SH9T, the premises, to Western Airport Development LLC. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for May 25th, 2021. Resolution 2021-48, a resolution of the Longmont City Council authorizing loans from the fund balance of the city's fleet fund to the DDA Construction and DDA Arts and Entertainment Fund, providing for the repayment of loans from the DDA Tax Increment Income Fund. Item 9C, Resolution 2029-49, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Longmont and the Colorado Department of Transportation for state funding for State Highway 119 and Sunset Street intersection improvements. Item 9D, Resolution 2021-50, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Longmont and Boulder County concerning asphalt chip seal on North 75th Street. And 9E, Resolution 2021-51, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the City of Colorado Springs for an Internet Crimes Against Children program grant offered through the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Office of Justice Juvenile and Delinquency Programs. And I believe that none of these items need to be pulled by the staff.
Okay, there we go. Does anyone want to pull anything? All right, then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead. It's been, let's see here. It's been 1 minute and 45 seconds. So let's go ahead. Do we have anybody in the queue yet?
Mayor, we have 2 callers.
So let's go ahead and keep the line open for another 3 minutes during the first call. That'll put us well beyond 5 minutes, and then we can close it off. Okay.
Sounds good. So Mayor, the first caller I'm going to ask to unmute, your phone number ends in 643, caller 643. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Caller 643, are you there? Try hitting *6 on your device. That might help.
I should call.
Hi, we can hear you.
Okay, I am here for a proclamation. This is Diane Groff. So I don't know when I should call in for that.
This is the public invited to be heard opportunity. Sandy, are we aware of a proclamation?
It is Councilwoman Christensen.
Oh, I believe that that's on the agenda for next week.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
okay.
It is on the agenda for the 18th is the plan.
Great. Then never mind.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. Have a good evening.
We'll see you next week.
And so call in during public to be heard.
So
We will make
week,
sure that we set up some time with, yeah.
yeah. So you're gonna. So Councilmember Christensen, this person will be receiving the proclamation, right? Okay. So next week, just call in and we'll put you on the agenda at the beginning of the meeting. You can just kind of wait. That would be best, so we don't miss you.
We'll have to reach out to her unless she's still listening.
Okay. Well, Councilmember Christensen, if you could just make sure we get in contact with that person, that'd be great.
Yes.
And you're muted, Paula. You're muted. We can't hear anything you're saying. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, it's different on my, anyway, I'll take care of it. Yes, thanks.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, we'll go on to the next caller then. The next caller is, your phone number ends in 659. I'm going to ask you to unmute 659. Are you there? 659? Please make sure that you're listening to us through your telephone and not the live stream, because there is a delay. So in a few seconds, you're probably going to hear my instructions. Caller 659, can you hit *6 and unmute? Caller 659. Are you there? Mayor, either they're unable to unmute or they don't want to speak. I'm not sure.
Is there anybody else in the queue?
No, sir, there's not. We only had 2 callers. The first one, as you know, yep, and they just hung up, the second caller. So
All right, then let's go ahead and close out public invited to be heard, and we'll move on.
Very good.
Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion for the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second,
All right, the consent agenda has been moved by Dr. Waters and seconded by Councilman Martin. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
say nay. Opposed, say nay. All right, I think Councilmember Peck said aye. Is that true, Councilmember Peck? All right, so the motion carries. The consent agenda is passed unanimously. All right, let's go on to ordinances on second reading and public hearings on the matters we have on the agenda tonight. Let's go ahead and actually take a break for 3 minutes and then allow people to call in should they want to speak at any of the public hearings pertaining to item 10A, 10B, or in other words, ordinances 2021-27 and ordinance 2021-28. So we'll be back in 3. All right, that was about 4.5 minutes.
And Mayor will give the live stream just a few seconds to get caught up.
That's right.
And we do have one caller. All right, looks like our live stream has dropped the call-in slide. And I can.
Well, go ahead and make it live, and we're going to still wait for Councilmember Hidalgo Faring, and I'm going to grab a cinnamon bear.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to ordinance 10A, ordinance 2021, a bill for an ordinance authorizing a farmland lease agreement between the city of Longmont and Alan Seawald, the tenant on the Adrian open space property. There is not a staff report. Councilmember Christensen? Paula, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Okay. In reading through this packet, I would like to draw everybody's attention to the fact that on page 3, in establishing the boundaries of any, F, in establishing the boundaries of any area proposed to be annexed, if a portion of a platted street or alley is annexed, the entire width of said street or alley shall be included within the area annexed. So that means that not only if we annex this thing, this piece of property, we would also be annexing. It's page 3.
Hold on, time out. There's a point. There's a point of order. Can you hear me? It says I'm muted, but it's not. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I know where you're going with this, Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd just like to point out that we are not talking about the annexation proposal at this time.
Right. We are on a bill for an ordinance. Yeah, we're currently on a bill for an ordinance authorizing a farmland lease, not
Farmland
annexation.
lease.
Oh, you're right. Right. I'm getting ahead of myself.
All right.
Sorry.
Anybody else want to make comments on the farmland lease? All right, let's go ahead and open it up for public hearing.
All right. We have one caller. Your phone number ends in 659. I'd like to ask you to unmute and let us know if you want to speak on this item. I'm asking you to unmute now. Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can. Would you please go ahead and
All
state
right.
your name and address for the record? And you have 3
My name
minutes.
is Ben Bishop, 1763 Montgomery Circle. I couldn't get on earlier during public comment, and I think it's too late for that, so I should drop the line, I think. I was the one that couldn't get through.
Yeah, well, we will have
true?
an opportunity. Yeah, we can, right now, I don't allow people to talk off topic on this, only because then everyone
Understand.
would. But if you could call back in, I don't know. I don't think this meeting is going to be that long. If you want to stick around and call, we're going to have a second public invited to be heard. So could you call back?
Understand. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.
All right. We're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And can we have a motion?
I move approval of ordinance 2021-27.
I'll second it. All right. The motion is to pass ordinance 2021-27 on second reading. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right. The motion carries unanimously. Is there anybody else in the line? Was that the only caller?
Yes, Mayor, that was the only callers. There's no
All
one
right.
else here.
Okay. So ordinance 2021-28, 10B, a bill for an ordinance approving an amendment to the Vance Brand Municipal Airport Hangar Parcel H-41 lease. There's no staff report. We'll go ahead and open it for public hearing, but there's nobody on the line, so we'll close it. Can we have a motion?
I move adoption.
Second.
All right. It's been moved by Councilmember Martin and seconded by Councilmember Hidalgo Faring. Was that who that was? All right. All in favor of ordinance 2021-28, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. All right. Ordinance 2021-28 is adopted and passed unanimously. All right, there's nothing that we removed from the consent agenda. Let's move on to general business, which is, I believe Councilmember Christensen will have some questions, which will be 12A, an annexation referral regarding 150 Francis Street. There is a presentation. We're going to turn it over to Aaron Fosdick. Hello, Aaron.
Hello, good evening, Mayor Bagley, members of council. I actually do not have a presentation tonight. You've gone through my other annexation referrals so quickly. I did not prepare a presentation, but I will address Councilmember Christensen's question, and I can certainly provide an overview of this item if council desires. This is a pretty straightforward referral of an annexation of 150 Francis. In looking at the notes that Public Works provided the applicant when they held a pre-application meeting, the applicant will be required to annex Francis Street and the existing alley fronting the east property boundary from the southern property line to Spruce. So should council refer this property through the annexation onto the full annexation process, we would be asking them to annex all of that right of way. And I'd be happy, again, if you'd like me to go through this, I'd be happy to, or I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have. We also have the applicants on the line if council has questions for the applicants.
All right, does anyone have any, will you need a motion on this?
Yes.
Okay, so do we have any questions? If not, do we have Councilmember Christensen?
Okay, so I realize that this is just to make sure that it is open to being annexed. We're not voting on the annexation, but the truth is that once it goes into this, it never goes back. It is always annexed, and we are turning it into it is automatically going from suburban residential to mixed use. This is on a small, dusty little dirt road down the street from me. And I've talked to all these people for the last 30 years. I don't think anybody else on this road actually wants to be annexed. And yes, they have the opportunity to be heard at a neighborhood meeting if they get the notice, but they probably won't get the notice. And if they do, they will just they will accept defeat, which is what we usually do. This has one exit and one entrance. It is not at all suited for being turned into mixed use. It also was completely underwater. Maybe FEMA thinks that it will not be underwater next time there's a flood, but they will be underwater. This is a man who lives in New York. He does not live on this property. This is an investment property for him. And he's interested in working with the adjacent large landowner, which has been working on his property for the last 10 years and has not broken ground. I am not voting for this because I don't see that it enhances that neighborhood. I don't see that the possibility of turning it into a multiplex down a small little road that only has one entrance and exit is an advantage. I think that's a very dangerous proposition. I'm not voting for it. That's all I'm saying.
All right, I guess Councilmember Martin.
Yeah, I'd like to ask the applicants why they want to be annexed.
Tanya and Mark, are you on the line? If you should be able to. Hi, Mark. Hi.
Yep. Hi there. Well, we want to be annexed into the city for two reasons. One, that the proposed development that was going to be happening in northeast of us that was mentioned by the councilwoman, that they're going to be developing that property, and that the sewer was going to be coming down our property line, and then we'd be able to get off our septic and get into that sewer line. We are not planning to develop this property. That was never part of our proposal. Our proposal is to get more environmental in terms of getting off the septic. We're surrounded by people who have homes that are on sewer, and that's our main reason. You know, it really is. We have no plans to develop this property.
And I should add, thank you, Mark. I should add just for council's information that the concept plan, obviously we would review this in detail if council refers this through to the annexation application process, but the concept plan submitted by the applicant, as Mark noted, does not include development. The zoning that's requested is residential mixed neighborhood, and that is in alignment with the Envision Longmont multimodal and comprehensive plan, which is why they're requesting that zoning, because we would require them to request that zoning. Certainly, if development were to occur at a later date, if a concept plan was approved that didn't show development, that would need to come back through council. I mean, obviously, these are multiple steps down the road, assuming this property is referred, the property is then annexed. A concept plan amendment to allow development would also need to occur, because the one that they've submitted as part of this referral does not show any development, as the applicant noted. So I just want to make that clear. And as Councilmember Christensen noted, annexation is a major development application. So prior to them submitting an application, assuming council refers it again, we would host a neighborhood meeting. We would notice all property owners within 1,000 feet of this property and post the property.
All right. Do we have a motion regarding Councilmember Peck? I'm sorry, I did not see that big yellow hand. Yes.
Thank you. Actually, I have another question. In the letter from Mr. Wagner in our packet, it stated that Peter Spalding wanted to go through his property, which is a reason for part of the annexation to hook to the sewer. So my question to staff is there another route that Peter Spalding could take other than going through the Wagner's property to hook up to the sewer for his development? Is there another path?
Councilmember Peck, I have not evaluated that, and I'm not certain that there's anyone from Public Works that worked on that project that could evaluate that. So we would have to get back to you on that. It's not necessarily critical that a property be annexed in order for them to grant an easement. But certainly, as the applicant noted, it does provide an opportunity for them to hook into Longmont's wastewater system, which is one of the goals, one of the policies identified in our comprehensive plan, eliminating septic systems within our planning area. So there may be another alternative. I'm not certain of that. I can certainly see if there's someone from Public Works that worked on the Bond Farm property project that could answer that, but we may need to get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you, Erin. It just seemed to me that when I read the letter that this was a joint conversation in order to facilitate the Bond Farm. So I won't be voting for this until I see if there is another path for that sewer line for Bond Farm. Thank you.
Councilmember Waters.
Yeah, I move approve. I guess the proper motion is I move that we refer this for further consideration and for it to come back to us at the appropriate time.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Waters and Councilmember Martin. I guess my only thought is the one thing that comes to mind is there's a tension here I always see between no growth and wanting affordable housing. And I think that just whenever an annexation comes up, the default should, we have a Longmont area comprehensive plan and that's been adopted by this council, and moving forward in alignment with that concept, I don't have a problem with it. So especially when we're just referring 150 Francis Street for referral for annexation. So there's a motion on the table. Let's go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, the motion carries 5-2 with Councilmembers Peck and Christensen opposed. All right, thank you very much, Van Wagners, and we'll see what happens.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, 12B, Airport Advisory Board's 2020 Annual Airport Report. Mr. Slater.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem and council members, David Slater, Airport Manager. Also with us tonight is your Airport Advisory Board Chair, Mr. Harrison Earl. He may have some additions once I kind of go through this and also here to answer questions with regard to the report and any other questions regarding the Airport Advisory Board. You have the full report in your packet, but I just wanted to go through some of the items and just highlight it. I know there's a couple of other items still on the agenda tonight. So we didn't make a formal PowerPoint presentation. But we did have 5 goals in 2020. The first of being is to provide community service and or protection. And under that category was in response to the Cameron Peak wildfire. There were a couple of council members that had asked me if we had provided any kind of response. We were the staging operation initially for Billings Flying Service out of Billings, Montana. They have a CH-47, which is a civilian version of the military Chinook helicopter. It's a twin rotor helicopter. And they staged out of here during the initial stages of fighting the Cameron Peak wildfire. The second goal was to continue developing partnerships with surrounding public agencies. Every year we work with the National Guard, Boulder County and Longmont Fire Departments, and the wildfire training exercises. This actually came a little bit before Billings Flying Service showed up, but they did have several Black Hawk helicopters, some Lakota helicopters, and Chinook helicopters as well. And it just helps them prepare for when they do have to go out and actually train the fire, go out and fight the fires, the wildland fires. So we're happy to be in partnership with those agencies and protecting our community. Our third goal was to attract additional airport use and development. During 2020, we had some responses to some requests for proposals for land development for hangars. We actually developed 8 hangars total. 7 of the 8 were for private aircraft storage, and the 8th one will be used for aircraft as an aircraft maintenance facility, which will bring 4 to 5 jobs once they move in. They are just working on their final certificate of occupancy at this time. Our fourth goal was to maintain the airport in a safe and efficient operating environment. Really important, Peck Ditch crossed the runway safety area on the west end of the airport. The FAA provided a 100% grant. They typically do 90%, 10%, 5% is matched by the airport fund and 5% by the state in a normal environment. But because of the CARES Act, the FAA issued the full 100% grant to relocate the Peck Ditch outside the runway safety area for a safer operating environment. And our fifth goal was to increase revenue generation for the airport to become as self-sustaining as possible. So those 8 new leases brought right at $20,000 additional to the airport fund that we weren't getting before. And another additional increase of about $2,100 for the CPI or consumer price index increases of the existing leases for a total of $22,000 for 2020's increase in revenue. We also received an additional grant from the FAA under the CARES Act for $69,000 due to things slowing down the first part of the year into mid-year to help with operations and the cost of maintaining the airport, operating the airport. And so we did get another $69,000 on top of that $26,000 we saved in the runway safety area project. Ultimately, we realized approximately a $95,000 savings or increase in the airport fund. Moving on to some of the other activities at the airport that we think is really important is how the flying community gives back out here. There's 11 pilots locally here that participate in Pilots and Paws. and they fly to different locations to help relocate and rescue animals. There's a father-son team that in 2020 made numerous flights and in total rescued a total of 56 dogs and 11 cats from Texas and Oklahoma. And their largest load in one haul so far is about 15 puppies. We think that it's been really great having our local community involved in things like that. And then Arrow Angel is an organization that gives hope to families that have children that can't typically travel on commercial airlines because of what they're going through, whether it's a weakened immune system, cancer treatments, things like that. We have a local businessman, Mr. Del Cateches, that owns a Phenom 300, and his manager and pilot, Mr. Wade Tagg, who is vital to his operation, and both just really great guys and very giving people. Dell donated his aircraft, and Mr. Tagg donated his time to fly. And in 2020, they left Longmont with a patient, went to California, and then traveled back to the East Coast on another trip from California before coming back to Longmont as well. And some of those articles were covered once in the Longmont Leader and another one in actual Flying Magazine. So we thought that that was very noteworthy. Some of the other organizations are Light Hawk Conservation Flying and Angel Flight West, who has a similar mission to Arrow Angel, but they aren't focused just on kids. And then, of course, search and rescue and things like that's done by the Boulder County Sheriff. They use some of the helicopter pilots that are based here on the airport as well as the Civil Air Patrol. Moving more into the data of the airport, we did see a decrease in operations, total flight operations due to the COVID pandemic. Typically, we're above 80,000 over the past year or two, and we did dip down to about 66,000 total operations this year. And of course, that hurt our fuel flowage. Those are some of the things that the FAA grant helped cover the cost on, is because we did see a loss of revenue and fuel flowage fees. Our total airport revenue in 2020 was $521,216, and total airport expenses of $316,370. That did not include the grant numbers that I mentioned to you before. The FAA grant amount was for $545,000. In addition to that $69,000 CARES Act. And then finally, just touching on the noise abatement review and noise complaint data, we actually decreased the total number of complaints by 16 from the previous year. So we had a total of 77 complaints this year, which was 16 less than last year, even though the number of people complained went up by about 10 people. Of that, typically the majority of the complaints had been over skydiving, but we noticed in 2020 that it was almost half and half. Most of it was skydiving, but not by much. General aviation increased significantly. And in looking at it, and based off of the review that I did, most of it seemed to be because during the COVID pandemic, most people were back at home or working from home. And of course, the majority of the complaints that we did receive, or a significant amount of them, were from near the airport, either under the airport traffic pattern or close to it. So we had a total of 77 complaints by 34 people for 2020. And at this point, I'll just open it up to any questions anybody has, and also remind you, Mr. Earl is here from the Airport Advisory Board to represent the board.
All right, not seeing any. I'm going to go ahead and say thank you for the report. And Councilmember Waters.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking, I thought there might be a number of questions from council members.
Go ahead.
First of all, I appreciate the report. I appreciate the level of commitment of our volunteers and on the advisory board. But I'm also mindful of LEDP and Longmont Economic Development Partnership with their initiatives. One of their major, I guess, focus areas is connectivity. And under the banner of connectivity, in the context of Longmont Economic Development 2.0, there is serious work being done by some folks who bring a fair amount of expertise to what an overall connectivity plan for Longmont might look like. I know that there is interest in that work in our airport as part of a connectivity plan, regional transportation solution. And it seems to me that if part of what, we reviewed the Longmont Economic Development Partnership, we heard the report from Jessica in the last meeting. If you look at the deliverables that we're obligated to LEDP, alignment of our goals with their goals becomes critical to their success as well as the city's success. And I don't know that this is a motion. I'd be happy to make it. It's more of a suggestion, and I'd be curious how others think. It seems to me we're going to miss an opportunity, a huge opportunity, if we don't make certain that our library advisory board and David are tightly connected with what's happening with that connectivity plan. I know Councilmember Martin is involved with that, with Councilmember Peck as the liaison. It seems to me that this list of goals, and David, I won't comment on the goals. For me, if I was going to look at goals, I'd want to see something a little different than what I see in this report, but I'm not going to pick on that. It seems to me that whatever we see next year ought to be aligned with this bigger community initiative in our airport as part of a regional transportation solution economic development initiative. And I have to say, I think much of the interest there is the vision there is really about our airport as kind of the vanguard, the leading edge of in the Western states of green aviation, research, development, and manufacturing, and all that comes with that. And I surely would like to see a year from now, this progress report reflect not only what we're doing with our airport, but in the context of this larger, broader, robust initiative occurring under LEDP as an economic development initiative.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I have two small questions for Mr. Slater and then one for Mr. Earl. First, David, what is the total acreage for Vance Brand Municipal Airport, roughly?
You caught me off guard. Mayor Bagley, Councilmember Martin. I want to say it is around 270 acres, but I'll have to double check to make sure I'm not giving you bad information.
Okay, and I didn't need a precise number. I needed a ballpark, so that's probably fine. I will observe that we're seeing a staggering increase in land prices in Longmont in general. Mostly residential land prices, but the question that we need to lead into is for that much acreage in kind of a landlocked city plan, is $500,000 an appropriate amount of revenue to be associated with that land? Does it seem to you that maybe we should be looking to expand the amount of revenue that the airport enterprise brings in?
Mayor Bagley, Councilmember Martin, yes, I think at this point that's a fairly generous revenue stream. And it depends on what you're comparing it to. Keeping in mind that most of that is north side development. What I mean by that, north of the runway. You still have a significant amount of property on the south side that we're looking to develop and utilize that property to generate a significant amount more. And also of that total acreage, you're looking at unleasable areas such as the runway and the taxiway infrastructure. So for the amount that is leased, I believe that it's a fair amount. But it's definitely something that we can look into as far as doing a little research on what the surrounding Front Range airports are getting on their fair market value and their demand.
So this is what I always tell the Platte River Power Authority. We don't want to be equivalent. We want to lead. Yeah, it may be a fair amount of revenue expressed in terms of hangar leases, but Mr. City Manager, would you like to chime in there?
Yeah, I think when you look at, and we've talked about this with council before, when you look at an airport and you look at the broader, what you want to accomplish out of that, obviously, because of the grant assurances that we have to do everything we can to maximize the revenue we have at the airport. And so we have talked about really the available land that's on the south side of the runway, in that open area, is the land that we really have available to develop to generate additional revenue for the airport. And we've talked through that. So I think what David was saying is if we're going to maximize it, that's one spot to maximize it, because it's and that's where we took the to kind of close the loop. That's where we did the work on the infrastructure master plan and working on the rates to start getting that infrastructure in the area. So it is more developable property. So yes, there. And then I think as we look at the north side, we've often talked about the infrastructure we have in place, the cleanup that we need to do in that area in order to make it more developable as well, and really, take advantage of what we have. And then we've also talked a little bit about the unique opportunity at that airport in terms of the property that is just to the south of it, that's owned by a private company, but does present some opportunities in terms of through the fence access that is unique when you see airports. And so yes, I think as we look to the future and we want to do more, I know council members have said, how can we get additional staff and how can we do more, to assist David in this? It really is about increasing revenue in that enterprise fund. And so to answer your question, yes, we definitely need to do more so that we can increase the revenue and continue to make that a viable location and look at different opportunities as they present themselves.
Thank you. And I just would like to, point out that there are sort of more revenue dense kind of development than building more hangars. And we need to be looking at those. For Mr. Earl, I'd like to ask on behalf of yourself and the board, do you have any interest in sustainable aviation?
Well, thank you, Councilmember Martin. Good evening, Council and Mayor. I think I can speak for my own particular opinion. I don't want to represent that of the board without having it been on the agenda. But absolutely, I think we're looking at any valuable development, particularly for aeronautical purposes at the airport, both to increase the utility of the airport and to drive additional revenue. And would absolutely love for the Vance Brand Airport to be on the vanguard of kind of that new sustainable green aviation where it makes sense with those other goals.
I certainly agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Waters.
Councilman Peck had a hand up. I'll follow her.
Oh, I did. Sorry. I said to use I told Paula to use the orange hand or the yellow hand, but I'm still not looking for it. Councilmember Peck, go ahead. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Councilman Waters. David, I have a question for you. I have seen this, what we refer to as the beachfront property that is there for development. We've seen that several times actually on council of what can be developed. And a couple years ago, you and I had discussions about that infrastructure that needs to go in for the development. And I was hoping it would be a year earlier than it was. So what I'm wondering is, would it be possible to bring the advisory board up to date on what the city sees? Bring that PowerPoint showing our new board, really, some of these new members, what we have for development, what our land looks like, where the infrastructure is going, so that everybody is really on the same page when we talk about development and what land is actually available. Do you think we could have that on an agenda for the advisory board?
Mayor Bagley, Councilmember Peck, absolutely. I don't have it for this May meeting. However, if that's something I can put together between now and Thursday evening, then maybe the board can do an amendment to their agenda so that we can take a look at that
Okay.
for May.
For June?
The sooner the better.
Okay. Thank you for considering.
Councilmember Waters?
Yeah, so Councilmember Martin's question about revenue generation, for me, I just want to say what would be helpful for me or meaningful for me. I see a goal to increase revenue generation. So I would look for a goal, and I don't know if revenues per acre is the right metric, but I don't know what a better metric would be. It'd be interesting to me, David, and I don't know about any other council member, but a goal that would state something like the goal is to generate X dollars per acre, if that's the right metric. And over the next 3 years, we're going to increase that by X percent to, some number per acre. And here's how it compares to the best, to best in class, 10 airports serving municipalities of comparable size. Here's how it compares, right? No one aspires to be average. We'd like to be, as Councilmember Martin suggested, best in class, but that would be a meaningful goal, right? It's measurable. It could be time bound, and it would be meaningful. And if it's not revenues per acre, give me a better metric, but that's the kind of goal that I'd like to see. And, we could do the same thing with these other goals. And I think that's the kind of metric that would be useful in this broader context of economic development and what we expect LEDP to do for us and what we expect to do with them on behalf of the community.
All right, before I make the motion to accept the report, do we have any other questions or comments? All right, with that, I offer our thanks on behalf of council, and I'm going to move that we actually accept the report as presented.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, the report is accepted unanimously. Thank you, Chairman Earl, and thank you, Airport Manager Slater. We appreciate your time tonight. All right, let's go on to 12C, Sustainability Plan and Climate Change Update. We have a presentation by the famous Lisa Knobloch, I believe.
Thank you so much. Yes, Susan, can you pull up the presentation for me, please? All right, thank you. All right. So Mayor Bagley and members of council, I'm Lisa Knobloch, Sustainability Program Manager with Public Works and Natural Resources. And I'll be providing an update on sustainability and climate action work for you all tonight. Next slide, please. Whoops. Did we lose the slides? I'm not seeing them anymore. Sorry.
It didn't like going into full screen mode for some reason. So give me just a minute.
Okay, no problem.
Start this over.
There we go. All right. So you can move it to the next slide, please, Susan. Thank you. So I'll be doing an overview of the sustainability and climate action goals and how they overlap and support one another. And then I'll go through where we're at to date with our metrics and progress underway. I'll be focusing mostly on climate action, but I will be highlighting some supporting work as well. And I have quite a bit to get through, so I just requested, if possible, if you could hold questions till the end, that would be really helpful. Next slide. So just as a reminder, the sustainability plan has 10 topic areas, which you can see listed here, each of which has objectives, targets, strategies, and timelines. all of which align with and support the guiding principles, goals, and policies of Envision Longmont. It was approved in 2016 and updated in 2018 to include targets and strategies from the Greenhouse Gas Report, which I'll touch on a little bit shortly. And in 2020, the Climate Action Task Force and Just Transition Plan Committee developed recommendations in the 6 topic areas that you see in blue, many of which were overlapping with the sustainability plan and contain goals and targets that support and expand those within the sustainability plan, with equity-based recommendations to be applied to climate action. Next slide. This slide just highlights the objectives and strategies that were identified in the greenhouse gas reduction report, and the stars indicate where climate action recommendations overlap with previously identified greenhouse gas strategies. So you can see in some code areas, benchmarking, energy efficiency, smart grids, EVs, and multimodal transportation. Next slide, please. I wanted to review our emissions and establish climate action goals, so we talk about where we're at and where we want to go. Our first greenhouse gas inventory was done in 2017 with 2016 data and identified our 3 primary sources for emissions. This chart is updated to reflect 2019 data, and you can see those primary sources in the inner circle there. So the bulk of which is electricity. The dark blue shows our delivered electricity, and the orange section shows our additional equity share or Longmont share of PRP's additional energy. The outer circle shows the breakdown of sectors that make up those emissions. So you can see largely our emissions are in energy use in buildings, as well as on-road transportation with gasoline powered vehicles. And next slide, please. In December, Council approved the proposed implementation timeline that staff put together based on our evaluation of the 27 recommendations, and identified 12 recommendations for near-term implementation, which is the 2021 and 2022 timeframe, and those are listed here on the left. And earlier this year, we met with leads of all the near-term recommendations to identify implementation timelines, metrics, budget needs, and the application of the equity checklist. And there's work underway in the majority of these recommendations, and I'll detail those later. Next slide, please. The greenhouse gas report identified 11 strategies, which I showed in a previous slide, that had both greenhouse gas reduction potential as well as significant community co-benefits, such as improved public health and utility affordability. And then those strategies were modeled to determine an ambitious but achievable greenhouse gas reduction target, which was the direction from Council at the time. And those targets were, as we talked to you all about before, the 66% reduction by 2030 and 69% by 2050. The bulk of which is that transition to 100% renewable by 2030. That's why you see a pretty big drop at that point in time. This does also include projected increase in emissions based on population growth. It does not include electrification. As I mentioned to you before, there wasn't a lot of support for that at the time. However, we've done some initial modeling that we've actually shown included here in the hash mark section at the bottom that shows that we could increase our reductions by an additional 5% or so by 2030 if all new buildings were all electric and we were able to retrofit 25% of our existing buildings, and an additional 15-ish% by 2050 if we were able to retrofit the remaining 75% of existing buildings. This is just for reference. It's a rough estimate, but just to give you a sense of the impact in the natural gas area. And we anticipate more detailed information to come from the electrification plan that's underway. The Climate Action Task Force identified recommendations that support our ability to meet these overarching goals, and I'll get into those details in the coming slides. Next slide, please. So I just want to touch on the 3 primary sources to show our progress to date. With regards to electricity, we have the overarching goal that I just talked about. And we have 2 primary objectives with regards to energy, which is a 1% electric energy savings through efficiency, so trying to reduce the amount of energy that we need overall, and the transition to 100% renewable by 2030. So as you can see, our emissions, we're doing pretty well on these metrics. Our emissions are down about 8%. And this is from our 2019 inventory. That's due to both activities as well as some changes in methodology. We've met our 1% electric energy savings goal, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. And our 2020 energy mix was about 43% renewable for delivered energy and 33% for PRPA's total energy mix. And based on PRPA's most recent IRP, as you all are probably familiar, we are on track to achieving 90% by renewable by 2030 with comparable rate increases. However, they have committed to 2 additional IRPs between now and 2030 to reevaluate our ability to be able to meet that 100% target. The Climate Action Task Force identified 5 additional recommendations. The dark blue ones listed here are the near-term recommendations, and the light blue ones are midterm recommendations that will focus more on beginning in 2023. These are primarily tools and strategies that will be skillfully used together to reach our 100% by 2030 goal. And the green arrows indicate progress in these areas. So you can see we're on track to meeting our AMI target. The DERS work is underway. And even though the HEMS work is a midterm strategy, we're currently working on a demonstration project with Habitat for Humanity on that. The task force also identified recommendations that support the efficiency target, but I'll talk about that on the next slide. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So as mentioned earlier, the natural gas emissions come primarily from commercial and residential buildings. The initial inventory noted the need to address electrification because it is a big chunk of our emissions, but didn't set specific targets or recommendations for electrification. It did, however, focus a lot on energy efficiency, which we know helps to reduce emissions from natural gas as well as electricity. The sustainability plan also called for decreasing the utility cost burden through efficiency measures, although we didn't set a specific target for that. As I mentioned, that we did meet the 1% electric energy savings target, and the task force called for increasing the existing efficiency target to 2%, along with a number of recommendations that support that target, which is focused primarily on expanding existing efficiency programs, which you can see a number of which listed here. They also included 2 recommendations directly supporting electrification, the electrification plan, which as I mentioned is underway, and incorporating electrification provisions into code updates. Again, the green arrows indicate progress in these recommendations, and you can see there's a lot underway. And the yellow arrows show that work is underway, but there are limitations largely due to resources and staff capacity. And a couple things I want to highlight here, the low income energy efficiency program, which is the CARE program. The task force calls for setting a specific target of 400 homes per year by 2025. And that's increasing from our current average of about 40 homes. So that's a pretty significant increase. That program got hit pretty hard by COVID. So we're kind of stuck in the status quo for 2021. We will likely need additional resources to ramp up to achieve that goal. In the building codes, we just got our code books pretty recently, and they're underway with initial review. One component I want to note is that just by nature of adopting the most recent code cycle, which in and of itself this year is estimated to improve efficiency around 10% in this upcoming code cycle, we may need to stagger an inclusion of additional provisions, largely due to staff capacity. And as I mentioned, the electrification plan is underway. It's set to be completed mid to late 2022. And it will likely make more sense to wait until that's completed before including additional electrification provisions. And the building folks will be circling back with council to discuss progress on this item. And so we're really looking forward to the completion of the electrification plan to help identify the path forward in making significant greenhouse gas reductions in this area. Next slide, please. In transportation, we have targets of reducing 40% of our transportation emissions by 2030 and 100% by 2050. We have 2 primary objectives to achieving this goal, which is increasing vehicle electrification and increasing mode share. We're doing pretty well on the mode share component. You can see our 2019 data here, although I will note that this took a pretty big hit in the wrong direction in 2020 due to COVID. So it's going to take us some time to recover from that. And we have quite a ways to go in terms of vehicle electrification. The task force identified 4 recommendations that you see here in the light blue, which were all identified as midterm or monitor over time strategies. However, we have a lot going on in the realm of transportation that support these goals, which are highlighted in the green ovals. We recently completed the transportation roadmap, which was presented to you last month. And I do want to note that although that roadmap didn't set forth new goals, what it did was help us to prioritize the many transportation based initiatives that have been identified through a lot of different plans and efforts to help us achieve our emissions reductions goal in an equitable way that benefits our community. So it really helped take all of those recommendations and distill them down and prioritize them so that we can meet this transportation emissions reduction goal. In addition, we are aligning our CIP requests to ensure that our transportation infrastructure facilitates our ability to meet these goals as well. A couple of highlights there are bus rapid transit infrastructure and bike and pedestrian improvements through some of the Boston Avenue projects and the Kaufman Street busway improvements, system reliability and grid modernization, distributed energy resources, innovation and solutions, and EV charging infrastructure, which looks at both city fleet and strategic public stations. And I know Jim Engstead and Phil Greenwald are planning to return to council in the coming months to discuss the transportation of the future and policy priorities in that area that will help further our emissions reductions goals. Next slide, please. In addition, the task force identified recommendations in these 3 other areas that also support mitigation as well as adaptation. So in adaptation and resilience, as a precursor to the public health plan that's called for, we are underway with a climate risk and vulnerability mapping project that's supported by the Boulder County Sustainability Tax Funds to help us identify areas and populations within our community that are at greater risk to climate impacts. And there's some complementary work happening at the county with regards to that. The composting recommendation will be incorporated into the waste diversion work that council has directed, and we'll be bringing an update to you on that in the coming months. And we launched the climate lecture series as part of Earth Week, and I hope some of you were able to attend some of those events. It was a great week. It was in collaboration with the museum, KG&U, and Sustainable Resilient Longmont. And over the course of 4 days, the museum presented a series of 4 programs, each of which was dedicated to one of the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water, and featured a diverse panel of experts. The series was live streamed. It's still available for people to view. And to date, the series has been viewed over 5,000 times and counting, which is pretty impressive. Next slide, please. As we've discussed with you all, the Just Transition Plan Committee is continuing to meet and has since changed their name to the Equitable Climate Action Team and have identified actions they want to focus on in 2021. They co-presented a special conversation on climate change and equity with the museum for the culmination of the Earth Week events that I just mentioned. That program was offered in both English and Spanish and has since been viewed both 841 and 108 times respectively. We're utilizing the equity checklist and discussion guide in the implementation of climate action recommendations, and we're working with a collaborative countywide effort to share and support this work. Next slide, please. So in addition to direct climate action work, we have some supporting efforts that I want to highlight because they're really fundamental to the equity component and the relationship and capacity building within the community that's really integral to the success of our work. The Sustainable Business Program continues to increase participation and has recently launched the Sustainability Ambassador effort, in which 3 Latino businesses provide leadership to peer businesses, connecting them with resources, information, and services. The Neighborhood Impact Granting Program, in partnership with Community Services and the Longmont Community Foundation, awarded $15,000 to community sustainability projects. And we've secured over $1 million in grant funds to support projects that advance sustainability goals, including $500,000 for the carbon footprint reduction project at the city's wastewater treatment plant. Next slide, please. In addition, we launched the SOUL program, which I know there was some questions about recently. The SOUL program is a partnership between sustainability and community and neighborhood resources to promote sustainability at the neighborhood and residential level. It's a really unique approach to engage and empower residents as partners in achieving our broad sustainability goals. It was launched last summer, but put on hold over the winter due to COVID and just recently resumed. We had initial goals in 2020 of doing 20 household visits, and the visit includes an assessment and installation of eco upgrades like LED lighting and water conservation fixtures. It also connects the household to qualifying city resources like the CARES program and provides sustainability tips, resources, and education. We had to revise that goal to 10 households due to COVID. But we met that goal. We did 11 households in 2020. We also trained 4 volunteer technicians, which are the folks that go into the homes to do the work. And this year already have trained 5 additional volunteers. So we have 9 to date. In 2021, we'll be expanding the program across the city. We want to conduct more than 40 visits, and we already have 25 households currently on the wait list for assessments. We'll be recruiting additional bilingual volunteers and increasing our outreach for that program. And although it's early to assess broader impacts of the program or provide metrics really beyond program participation, we are establishing a protocol now to understand additional impacts such as utility bill savings, resource conservation, and greenhouse gas impact, as well as other quantitative metrics. And the participant feedback so far has been extremely positive. Next slide, please. So a lot of this information is contained in the new progress reporting format, which you received in your packet. This progress was reviewed by the Sustainability Advisory Board at their March meeting, and overall they were really pleased with the progress to date. A reminder that you can always go to the Longmont Indicators website to see progress on envision and sustainability metrics. It's updated annually, although that's somewhat dependent on data availability for some of those metrics. Next slide, please. So we'll continue to bring you periodic updates on specific initiatives, and we'll bring you a mid-year report later this summer. Next slide, please. And I'll open up to questions.
Mayor.
Councilmember, who's first? Councilmember Peck?
Thank you, Mayor Bagley.
You're next,
Lisa,
Marsha.
Lisa, thank you for this report. I do have a couple of things I would like to ask. First of all, are you going after any of this huge budget from the federal government for some of this climate action?
We have been in conversations, and a lot of the folks, so obviously it's not just the sustainability folks from LPC, folks from Public Works and Natural Resources. We are all in conversation about how we can be in alignment with regards to what we're going after for federal stimulus funds and how they can support climate action work, and working with Peter Gibbons on that, but we have not identified as yet any specific projects for funding.
With that in mind, you mentioned with several of your projects that staffing is a problem. So perhaps getting funding for some of the projects you want to move along for staffing would be a good idea. And I'm wondering, have you heard of grid alternatives or worked with grid alternatives?
I'm familiar with them. I haven't worked with them as yet. I know recently the county has a contract with them to do a workforce development program that Bernice and I met a month or so ago to get some more initial information on that, but that's as far as I'm familiar with them.
I think that for me, I would like to see us move faster, to be quite honest. 40 homes for the size of our city isn't very much, to be quite honest, if we're going to meet our goals. And when we talk about electrification, I see it as a double path. Because when we electrify, we also put a lot of strain on the grid. So if we could work with somebody like Grid Alternatives, get money from the federal government to do solar in conjunction with electrification, especially in the marginal communities, start at the bottom and work up. That's just my suggestion. I think there is a way that we can do this, and it would be very exciting to it would be very exciting if we could do it on a double path so that we're not overloading the grid and at the same time increasing our decreasing our dependence on anything but alternative energy. But thank you for this presentation.
Councilmember Martin, and then someone needs to, just a quick reminder, Councilmember Martin, at some point, someone needs to make a motion to accept the report. But go ahead, Councilmember Martin.
Okay. I have a few questions, and then I'll go ahead and make the motion. I have so many questions that I had to take notes. we talked about distributed energy resources, and carbon intensity signaling as well. And it looks like we don't begin carbon intensity signaling until distributed energy resources are already, a significant number of DERs are already deployed. So how's that supposed to work in the sense that I mean, distributed energy resources are intended to be used for load balancing, demand management. And if you don't have carbon intensive signaling, how do you know how to use them?
Mayor Bagley and Councilmember Martin, I will first note that the carbon intensity signaling protocol was one that was identified as a midterm strategy, but I am also going to tap Dave Hornbacher so he can hopefully step in and better answer your question on that.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Mayor Bagley, Councilmember Martin, and other members of City Council. So Councilmember Martin, yeah, I'm glad Lisa pointed out that again, the carbon signaling is sort of a midpoint. It's not delayed till like the end of this decade. And as we start to get more tools on this grid, we're going to move through stages from where we currently are to start shaving the peak to start reshaping the load to where we really have to match up signaling from our renewable energy resources to the distributed energy resources and really how that all works together. And so what I anticipate, especially, even starting this year, we've got the demonstration project with Habitat for Humanity for the home energy management systems. So we're trying to work into those spaces as we talk. It's small scale, but it's trying to start to get down the information protocols and the staff experiences to do that. But I definitely see pushing stronger into those spaces over the next couple of years, especially after we have the distributed energy resource strategy document done. And frankly, I am also, as you'll later see in the budget for 2022, I have proposed increases in some of those key CIP areas so they can be more responsive and have more programs and offerings and so forth than we currently have within our current budget. So I don't know if that answers your question, Councilmember Martin, but if you'd like to add to that or go to your next question, I'll be more than happy to.
It doesn't, but we'll go on. We have a project now that is a solarization plus battery on city buildings. I believe the funded one is at the waste treatment plant. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the nameplate rating of that project is 3 megawatts, roughly. Am I correct in that?
That I'm not sure of, Councilmember Martin. I would have to check with Peter Gage or others just to confirm that size.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I'm thinking it's not that large, at least for the battery size. I think it's under a megawatt. Platte River has a 2 megawatt battery right now that they've purchased with solar that they're currently operating and testing.
Yes, I remember 1 megawatt is the battery size as well, but and Harold, you may be able to chime in because was this more done by Bob Allen because it's a facilities thing, but the solar capacity. Yeah,
I think it is 3, and it may be a solar capacity of 2 and a battery capacity of 1 is what's sticking in my mind, but we'll need to look at that. But this is really run by wastewater because it is a wastewater project that's attached to that facility. And so John Gage, who's the one that did the work on the methane reuse, that's his project. But that number sounds familiar, but we'll have to look into it.
Yeah, but I thought I looked it up previously, but I didn't do it tonight, so the numbers don't necessarily stick. But The reason that I am concerned about that is because I was rereading the PRPA organic contract and also the power purchase, or not power purchase agreements, whatever the other contracts initials are. And it appears to limit our outside the meter generation to 1.7 megawatts. And that means that we would be exceeding that. And while there is language in the contract that says that they will negotiate relaxation of those limits, I'm wondering whether we actually did that in the case of this project.
So Councilmember Martin, I'm not aware that we have, that was something that was pursued, but I will follow up on that and get you more specificity to it and give you an update as soon as possible on that.
Okay, that'd be good. And Lisa, I am really for beneficial electrification. And I am also for conserving consumption, especially of electricity before we reach the goal, high percentages of renewable. And I think we've just concluded a deal that will bring us seriously to 50% within the next couple of years, at which point beneficial electrification becomes really, really beneficial. But you stated that you were looking for a decrease in electrical consumption, and yet our current consumption of natural gas is very close to our consumption of electricity in terms of the source of emissions, being a source of greenhouse gas emissions for Longmont. So if we begin curtailing our use of natural gas domestically, won't that create a significant increase in demand? Because people aren't going to stop cooking or heating their homes or heating their water. They're just going to start doing it with electricity. So does your reduction in consumption account for a corresponding increase?
Councilmember Martin, Mayor Bagley, it does account for that. So in the greenhouse gas modeling that we do, it accounts for both projected increase in electric use through electrification, as well as savings from those efficiency measures. And just to clarify, that goal in particular, the 1% to 2% electric energy savings, is specifically savings through energy efficiency measures. So that all of that does get accounted for. Yes.
Okay, so but it gets accounted for because we don't have very aggressive electrification goals in terms of reducing natural gas consumption. I mean, because if you go BTUs to BTUs, it doesn't make sense that you'd be able to reduce that much. On the back of my envelope, it doesn't.
I might see if Francie can jump in and answer that. She's the one that digs into all the data more deeply, but my understanding is that all of that is incorporated, the projected increase in electricity use, whether it be through increased vehicle electrification or building electrification, is all accounted for in terms of our modeling. That 1% number is calculated through LPC, and I'm not sure if I don't think Ann Lutz is on. She's the one that manages that, and I would have to otherwise follow up with her to ask her that question more directly.
Okay, I would appreciate that at some point. Francie, do you have something to say?
Yeah, as Councilmember Martin, Mayors of City Council, Francie Jaffe, Water Conservation Sustainability Specialist. As Lisa mentioned, we do factor in, I think even in 2030, there's like the smallest amount of negative impact, but it's essentially negligible. So we are factoring in that increase in electric load. How we have in the past modeled our projected savings comes from a number of different objectives, from increases in building code and commercial building benchmarking, the increase in the commercial efficiency from 1% to 2% is calculated. That number is looking specifically at our efficiency works projects. So based on how our modeling is set up, it's not an exact one-to-one of we're expecting to increase our commercial efficiency projects by this percent, by 1 to 2%. It's not an exact one-to-one model on how we are projecting out currently based on the projections that were made in our original modeling report. We do factor in items like retrofits and improvements in code, but so it's a little bit the difference of the increasing 1% to 2% increases in efficiency is more of what we're seeing now and how we are doing our efficiency, and why our projections is looking at a couple of different strategies that integrate efficiency works in a couple of different ways. So I realize that maybe doesn't fully answer the question, but it's not as a direct comparison between the projections versus what we're actually seeing and how the modeling is set up.
Okay, I was actually not concerned. I mean, building efficiency is a thing off to the side. I was concerned about replacement, whereas, you know, you're heating 50 gallons of water with electricity resistively instead of by burning natural gas. And that seems to me to be a larger factor than, especially at the present rate, you're going to get with building efficiency. So, I mean, I don't know whether you're, you know, not there yet with the model, but since we are looking very happily, I would have to say, at building codes that are going to at least stop the installation of new natural gas, I wonder if the increase in consumption from those sources needs to be accounted for better than it is.
Councilmember Martin, my understanding is that the increases in consumption were accounted for, and that recently our electrification model was updated by the consultant based on new data. They came from electrification and better understanding of heat pump efficiencies and other information. So they are continuously working to generate the most accurate data and assumptions on the transition from natural gas to electric.
Okay, that full working out is not in our packet, is it?
No, Councilmember Martin and Mayor Bagley, it is not, but that's something that we can share with you, or we can schedule a time to sit down and really dig into that data, because it's
let's start with sharing, and then if it's opaque, we'll, you know, have a meeting. Thank you. That'd be great.
Councilmember Hidalgo-Ferring.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, and this is kind of circling back to that additional staff needed. And I believe one of them was in the area of expanding the low income residential efficiency, where you had stated, it was stated in there that additional staff funding would be necessary to meet the goals. So I guess I wanted to know what that would look like. What you know, are there figures, the numbers of staff, what would they be doing, and where would the funding go to specifically?
Well, I'll go ahead and jump into that. So the way that that's going to work is those requests will come to us via the budget process.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we will go in and evaluate that to look at what the cost is, what the impact is, and how we're going to approach it. So that's actually what you will see from us as we move through the budget process to deal with these issues, and it'll come to you later in the fall with all of those specific answers into that question.
Okay, like as an amended budget, or?
Well, no, it's for next year.
It's for next
year. It's for next year and what we look there. But then at the same time, as we look at some of these, we always look for efficiencies and different things that we can do to to bring more efficiencies to bear so we can do more work as we're doing this. And so those are some things that I will probably start seeing within the next month in terms of those next month.
Okay.
Within those budget requests.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I, without having to look at the whole budget right in front of me right now, I feel like this is this is urgent, this is a priority. We as council all agree that this is, top on our list that we want to address. So I do want to voice my support in putting in the funds that are necessary to make our goals happen. And the other question I had was around the composting. So I received a call and an email from a constituent concerned about, and he had kind of heard that we were going to be talking about raising rates for trash. I think it was trash usage. So if you had a trash can, you would have to pay more than composting, that they were going to up. So they were really concerned about that piece. And I don't know how that kind of got out there. I don't know, unless I missed something. I know that we had discussion and kind of went our way around, but it almost sounded like maybe a rumor mill was kind of picking up and people were concerned that their trash rates were going to go up. But, to my knowledge, we've had discussion and threw out ideas. But what is coming down the pipeline for us to be voting on in council in regards to composting and trash collection? I was trying to simplify my question. So I guess it could go to Lisa or anybody who has that answer.
So I think the genesis from that question may have come from the conversation the council had with Bob Allen and Charlie Canamides talking about how we move in this. But you all have, we set various things that they were going to work on and evaluate, but the council has not voted at this point on raising any of those rates or doing anything more on that. That's what we would, as they continue doing the work that they're doing, we would bring that back to the city council and discuss those issues with you, and obviously be posted for a public conversation. So
Sure.
I would be happy to, if you want to have that individual reach out to me or
I
reach out to
I could
Bob.
do that. Yeah, or I can send it back. I thought, what, was I asleep at the wheel? Did I miss something? I always have to double check myself, but I really think it was coming from conversations that we had on council.
Because I think that was one of the conversations about
that
how we
answers my
take the next step.
Okay, thank
I'll
you.
have to go back and look at that conversation.
Perfect, thanks.
All right, we'll go to Dr. Waters and Councilmember Martin.
Yeah, I'll just, we in a study session with Charlie and Bob, that was part of the discussion. And they had an advisory group that was recommending pretty aggressive rate increases. Actually, Bob, as I recall, Bob and Charlie said they weren't ready to make that recommendation. They thought the recommendation was too aggressive, for the right reasons, but ultimately all of the priorities they talked about, or none of the priorities they talked about, are going to be achieved without additional revenues. It's either more, pay as you throw, or it's going to have to come from someplace. But they were not recommending those in the study session we had at the end of January is when it was, or first week in February.
Councilmember Martin? And
Yeah, I
then
would
we'll go
just like to.
Harold, let's let Marcia go, then we'll go with you.
Okay, I would just like to quickly add that somebody posted that on Engaged Longmont under the climate emergency page, and they were really vicious about the pay as you throw rates that they were, they were aggressive. So that could also be the source of fear.
Harold, do you have something to say?
What I wanted to say on the question that Councilmember Martin regarding the wastewater treatment plant, I actually found the application. 2 million was the number of kilowatts that we use on the blowers, and then we talked about the reduction to 600,000 or 700,000 kilowatts. So let us get all of that information and condense it into here's what it's going to be, because it's a combination of what we produce in solar, what we store in the battery, and then the reduction on that we're also having in all of this in terms of this. So we will bring all of that together in a pretty simple format to say here's the number.
All right, I'm actually going to move that we accept the sustainability plan and climate action update.
I'll
Second.
second it.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and say that we heard several, so I'm going to go ahead and make the motion. And Councilmember Hidalgo Faring, is that your second? Okay, then we'll go ahead. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. All right, the approval of the sustainability plan and climate action update passes unanimously. All right, let's move on to item 12D, legislative bills recommended for city council position.
Hello, Mayor Bagley, members of council, Sandy Cedar, Assistant City Manager. I have two bills for your consideration today. First one is Senate Bill 21-252 concerning the establishment of a state grant program to promote projects in commercial centers throughout the state that will revitalize community spaces. This basically creates a grant program to be able to assist with blighted areas and areas that are underused. Obviously, this assists our development plans and our development hopes based on the council work plan. And so staff recommends that city council support Senate Bill 21-252.
Do you have a motion? I move that we follow staff's recommendation. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Peck. I'm sorry. Let's go with Councilmember Peck. She had the little hand up. Sorry, Councilmember Peck. I will withdraw my motion. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to make the motion.
I know, but I didn't see your hand and it was rude. So I will second Councilmember Peck's motion that we follow staff's support pertaining to this bill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, the direction passes unanimously. All right, the next bill.
Thank you, Mayor. The next bill is Senate Bill 21-260 concerning the sustainability of transportation system in Colorado and creating new sources of funding dedicated towards preserving, improving, and expanding existing transportation infrastructure. So this is the big transportation bill that everybody has been sort of waiting for. What it does is it pulls together all kinds of fees and added, registration fees and other things like that. And aims to raise about $3.7 billion in new revenue to be able to use towards transportation. Of course, the city would have a portion of that, which would certainly help our transportation goals. But I did want to point out that when I spoke with Phil Greenwald about this one, there's a concern that in one of the sections that they are giving transportation planning organizations the ability to levy taxes. This is not something that the council has been interested in supporting in the past. And so his suggestion was that we support Senate Bill 21-260 if it's amended to remove the section that grants the TPO's taxing authority.
So moved.
I'll second that. All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. All right, great. The motion passes unanimously. Okay, let's move. Let's go ahead and take a 3-minute. Councilmember Waters.
Yeah, Sandy, real quickly, is it Senate Bill? It's Senate Bill 199 that we for which we passed, actually two bills, 199, remind me of the other number, for which we passed a resolution in support. The removing barriers bill. Sandy, are you still there?
I am still here. Sorry, Councilmember Waters. Can you repeat the question again? Are you asking about status of 199?
Well, we passed a resolution supporting 199 and a companion piece of legislation. What was it?
It was Senate Bill 70.
70, thank you. I know 199 has gone to the Appropriations Committee, and there is some concern that that bill has gone to the Appropriations Committee to die, and that the governor has signaled someone that he's not interested in signing the bill. Do you have any knowledge of that?
I have not heard that. It is moving very slowly, I will tell you that, considering when it was introduced versus where it is in committee. And it was sent to state, and Veterans Affairs, which honestly does usually indicate that it's not a favored bill, and that since that doesn't match per se.
Yeah.
But I hadn't heard about the governor's veto or any mention that he had said. It is moving slow. I did check on its status today. It's an appropriation, so it did make it past state Veterans Affairs, but I'd be happy to check in with Colorado Municipal League, see if they've heard something different.
That would be great. The coalition supporting that legislation, it's my understanding, is concerned that the governor's the governor has signaled he's not interested in signing the bill. That's why it went to that committee, because the governor's, and if the governor's staff is listening to this conversation, I hope they would clarify if I've got this wrong, that the governor's interest is in supporting more investments in early childhood programming only for licensed providers. That has huge implications for us in Longmont. 60% of our kids today, 0 to 5, are in unlicensed care. And if the governor's only interested in investing in licensed facilities, we'll never grow the capacity we need to serve unserved or underserved children right now. And I don't think it's just this community. It's going to be communities all over the state. And to whatever degree, if I have it wrong, I hope I have it wrong, to whatever the degree CML could weigh in, we have a plan in Longmont to build our capacity to do it with high quality, affordable services, but we're only going to get there if we develop our unlicensed provider core in this community, our FFN network. And I'm concerned that bill, if passed, significantly increases the population of potential providers. That's the key, right? To step into training opportunities and create their own business. And if that's denied, we are going to be behind an 8-ball forever until the governor or the new office of childcare or early childhood education gets behind the potential of developing and sustaining unlicensed providers along with licensed providers. So I'm concerned about it. If you would follow up, I think we ought to know what that status is. And if the governor's not interested, or that if appropriations is going to just let it die on the calendar, that we ought to do some kind of outreach, and maybe it's just individual, citizen participation as opposed to council participation, but we ought to let them know that's going to be a huge disappointment. And beyond that, it's a disservice to 60% of the children in this community ages 0 to 5.
I will check on that and see if I can find out any more about that. I was surprised. I did look up its status today thinking, where has that been? And so I found that it was still in appropriations. That does mean that it's a pretty slow moving bill, but I'll see if I can find out some more information. Just as a reminder, the official council position is support. So feel free to share that far and wide individually and speak for the council as well. So.
All right, great. So now let's go ahead and let's take a 3-minute break, as hopefully that gentleman is going to come back and have his 3 minutes at the final call, public invited to be heard. So back in 3. All right, is there anybody in the queue?
Mayor, we do have one caller.
Good. I'm hopeful this gentleman returned. So let's go ahead and open it up.
All right. The caller's last three digits are 659. I'm going to ask you to unmute. 659, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We sure can. Please state your name and address
Great.
for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Council. Oh, I'll mute here. Good evening. I'm Ben Bishop, a resident of Longmont since 2006. My address is 1763 Montgomery Circle. I saw that the airport's annual report is on tonight's agenda, and I wanted to offer a word of appreciation. The airport and the aviation enthusiasts who work and fly to and from the airport have had a direct and lasting impact on my family. By providing access to high quality, safe air travel services for the citizens of Longmont, which is the airport's mission, the airport and the members of the Experimental Aircraft Association, the EAA, helped launch my 19-year-old son, Caleb, on his career path. Caleb participated in the Young Eagles program when he was a Boy Scout, where members of the EAA, which meets monthly at the Longmont Airport, provided free flights to kids. Caleb has wanted to be a pilot ever since that flight. Caleb went on to take pilot ground school classes on his own, and again during high school at the St. Vrain Valley Schools Innovation Center. Caleb was also a member of the Civil Air Patrol here in Longmont and participated in both powered and glider flights at the Longmont and Boulder airports. Caleb has gone on to join the Air National Guard and is pursuing a degree in aviation and a career as an airline pilot. After college, Caleb also plans to apply to fly for the Air National Guard. Caleb and I were also invited to join a local private pilot for a flight during Christmas to observe Christmas lights from the air, and we used a plane rented from the Longmont Airport. And also, the airport participated by bringing treats to the Innovation Center recently when my 15-year-old son, Josh, made an attempt at building and flying a world record attempt model airplane that was about 35 feet long. Today, I have had, and I continue to have, the privilege of proofreading Caleb's essays for college and scholarship applications. And those essays always begin with the love of flying that was spawned during the EAA Young Eagles flight Caleb received right here at the Longmont Airport. So tonight, as the council receives the airport's annual report, I just wanted to say thank you for your support of the airport and of the businesses and the individuals who use the airport. I hope you'll continue to invest in the Longmont Airport. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. All right, is that it for callers?
That is.
All right, we're going to go ahead and close the final call, public invited to be heard. Let's move on to mayor and council comments. Who would like to say anything else? We've all said a lot, but all right, great. Harold, do you have anything to say?
Mayor, Council, I did want to kind of give you an update on one thing that I saw today, and I take these opportunities to do this. Yesterday, I was in a meeting. I was in the Longmont Economic Development Partnership, and we saw just the price increases that we're seeing in wood. Monumental price increases that we've never seen. I was in another meeting today looking at a project that we have in place, and it's not only wood, it's steel, it's copper, it's plastic, it's anything in that arena. And so I wanted you all to know is that as we start talking about projects and we're looking at it in terms of what we're bidding, we're going to have to really be watching these the markets and what it's doing to the cost of the projects and how we move forward. It is different, and I've now heard in one conversation today, bidders in some cases are holding prices 7 days, and in other cases, I heard again, bidders are holding them for 14 days. So I just wanted you to know as we're talking about these projects and what we're looking at, and I apologize, my dog is licking his bowl behind me. I got moved again. I just wanted to give you a heads up of what we're starting to see. This is going to be something that we're going to be watching. And it may be that as we talk about some of the budget conversations, as we're moving on, this may be something we bring up to present you all because it's definitely unprecedented times. The example I will give you, if you try to buy a piece of furniture right now and it's not ready, I've seen it take 2 to 3 months. Things are getting caught in ports. I heard the other day, I think it was the Port of Long Beach or the Port of Los Angeles, where they normally have 2 boats waiting to come in. There was like 30. And so COVID has really had an impact in a lot of things that we're now starting to see. And what that means is I think people were reducing production based on the thought that people weren't going to build. You then have various production facilities that are impacted by different regulations. And so as this is all changing and as millions of dollars are coming into the system, the various governments, it's something we're going to be watching closely. I just wanted to give you a heads up, and we'll be talking to you more about this, but this was a significant enough issue that I felt like I needed to just say this is on our radar and we'll be talking to you about this. That's it.
Great. Is Eugene back and awake?
It'd be Liz.
Hey, Liz.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley and council. Nothing from the city attorney's office.
All right, great. Thank you. Then in that case, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is that Council Martin?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Waters. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, the motion to adjourn is unanimous. We'll see everybody next week. Thanks, guys.